This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
Hello and welcome to Superfans. This is your one-stop shop for Chicago podcasting. Cover everything Chicago sports. Today we have a great show for you. I'm joined by Sean Anderson.
Hey there.
And Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Ricky's dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And construction work in my house. So you're going to hear a lot of extra noises today. But this is coronavirus week 3. It was like 3, right?
Yeah, this is the third week we've done phone calls.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got a great show, and we have possibly the best news of Chicago Bulls in a long time. Our 3 topics today, I'm just going to drop them up front, and then we'll get into it. The first topic we have for you is who should the Bulls hire as their new GM, as new reports have come out. Thank you, Woj, for that bomb. Even though basketball's not playing, we get great news. And then next up is our continuation of the NBA draft, the 2020 draft. Who should the Bulls be taking with their draft pick? And the final topic of the day, we're getting historical. We're going, are the 90s Bulls the greatest dynasty? Because some people seem to think like this Golden State team holds a candle, but we're about to get one of the best ESPN documentaries that's going to drop in very short time, and I can't wait. And I think a lot of people are super excited for it. So we'll dive into all that later. Let's start off with the most hopeful topic for the Bulls fans out there, and that is the fact that Woj dropped the news that they are officially targeting a couple people for their new front office, and they are having serious thoughts. The disappointing thing, I'm just gonna get this out of the way because this is a personal knack, is I was all in. We talked to Sam Presti as like, this would be amazing, and he's not on the list.
Well, so, it's because our patron Sam did do enough black magic or dark magic to get him into our front office. But yeah,
Sean, when you heard this news drop, what was your first reaction? Was it just, is this, more BS and we're never going to rid ourselves of guard packs because they're just going to get side positions anyways and still be advisors? Or do you think this is actually a first step in the right direction for the Chicago Bulls organization?
Yeah, I think the thing is it wasn't too shocking to me, and I don't think it should be shocking to any Bulls fan because this is something we've been talking about for a very long time now. We've been talking that the fact that John Paxson might be moved to an advisory role. We've been talking the fact that this has been ongoing. We've talked that Gar Forman might be moved on from. We talked that, Jerry Reinsdorf and Michael Reinsdorf are unhappy with the way things are going. So I think that this isn't too shocking because this has been reported before. We've talked about Chad Buchanan possibly replacing, John Paxson and Gar Pax before. So it wasn't too shocking. I think the biggest thing that it meant was it's real. Because Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting this. This is now coming from national NBA reporters. This is leaking out to the entire NBA now that this isn't just in-house discussions. This is something that is now being nationally reported on, and that's what makes it real. And I think that's what at least gives Bulls fans hope out of this. And I think this is what this is a hopeful moment for the Chicago Bulls because I don't think this is something that will go away and now we'll have John Paxson and Gar Forman as the GM and scout and assistant GM or whatever their dumb positions were. But I think now this is the time that, this might be the final nail in Gar Pax's coffin because the Bulls aren't afraid for this to leak out to the national media. And I think that's a great thing for Bulls fans.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest, when I saw this, it was on Twitter, and it wasn't even Woj. It was the fellow Bulls fans that I follow and kind of all of us in Bulls Twitter, where a lot of people were like, oh my God, I'm crying tears of joy. And I kind of sided with the other side, where I was seeing tweets of like, all right, this is great, but are they going to have full control? And the thing that worries me is when I see, like, for example, I'm looking at the SI article and they say Paxson is likely to continue in an advisory role. Well, what does that exactly mean? Because we don't know. We could assume what it means, but we truly don't know. And I feel like whoever they bring in should have the control and should have the opportunity to do what they want. And I don't want something where it's like Paxton's an advisor, but really he's a kind of barricade that this GM has to get through to either do anything that they want to do. Like, for example, if they want to come in and fire Jim Boylan, like, let's say Paxton in an advisory role says, well, it's kind of like I think of my time in college where it's like, hey, I want to take this course. And my advisor would be like, well, I don't advise that. There have been times where I said, well, fuck it, I'm taking this course anyways because I want to take this course. Is that going to be the same thing? Hey, I want to fire Jim Boylan. Well, I don't advise that. Is the GM still going to have the power to say, well, fuck you, I'm the GM? Well, more politely than that.
Yeah,
but fuck you, I'm the GM, I'm still going to do it. I think they need that power.
Advisory is such a blanket term that we don't really know what that means. I mean, it just could be a way to get John Paxson a paycheck. We see the stuff with Doug Collins. Doug Collins currently is an advisor, but then again, we haven't seen Doug Collins actually do anything. The only thing we've seen is the beef between him and Jim Boylan, but it actually hasn't led to anything that has materialized to something important that has affected the Chicago Bulls. So I don't think that anything so far we've seen has led to me being worried about, what John Paxson's going to do or possibly down the line. They are moving away from John Paxson. They are moving away from Gar Forman. They are looking at legitimate, real people to take over this organization. And I think Bulls fans should be excited about that. And I don't think we should be worried about, what if Bobby Webster can't do X because of John Paxson and an advisory role? We don't know what advisory role means right now. And I wouldn't worry about it because right now is the first step. And let's see what the Bulls can do. If you have no faith in them, then you're not going to like the move anyway.
I'm kind of hoping it's like old school mob, like advisor, like they're paychecks and no. Am I back?
You cut out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Old school mob.
Yeah, like they're going to keep getting paychecks, but they don't have to do anything anymore. They're just being kept on the roster basically at this point.
Sam brings a good point. Is he going to be like Kenny Williams, where it's like we're getting a Rick Hahn, but the Reinsdorf is loyal and he's like, hey, I don't want to kick Kenny to the curb. I'm going to bring Kenny in as a different role. Is that what this is going to be?
What we've seen over the past 3 years, at least as Sox fans, and I'd probably say 2 years or at least a year, there was a point that it just said it kind of seemed like it's Rick's team. Like early on in the Kenny days, it felt like Kenny was still holding Rick's hand, but I mean, fairly recently, it feels like it's been Rick's team and Rick has taken over. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think that at least the NBA is a different monster because you're not dealing with 7 minor league teams, and you're not dealing with all these contacts that you might need to do because obviously Kenny Williams had so many relationships that he built up throughout his time as the GM of the White Sox where, Bobby Webster's been doing this already. You've talked to all 30 teams. The name Bobby Webster is well known throughout the NBA. And obviously that's if Webster's hired. He's my favorite.
I mean, let's talk about that. I think
there's less of an ease in factor to an NBA GM job, especially when Bobby Webster's already been doing it under a better player, a better president of basketball operations, Masai Ujiri. That it's going to be. I don't think that Paxson's advisory role is going to be that large and that impactful.
Yeah, and let's talk about the possible candidates then, because you started off with Toronto's Webster being one of your favorites. I see some other names being tossed around. General manager. I'm going to horribly pronounce your whole name. Karnazovas, maybe. Adrian Simon from the Heat, Chad Buchanan, obviously. The Jazz's Justin Zanuck, and the Clippers' Michael Winger. So, like, out of that list, let's talk about why you like Bobby Webster off the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in there that I do like, and the name you're trying to pronounce, the GM, is Arturas Karnisovas. I was doing that last night for 5 minutes. Yeah, Karnisovas.
Nice.
I like Zanuck, I like Webster, and I like Karnisovas. Those are the three that I like in that order. Webster, the main reason why I like him is, the biggest thing that you need to do when you're looking for GMs, when you're looking for people to take over your basketball operations, you need to look at the places that are most successful. And Toronto is such a unique place to succeed under such a unique person as well in Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri has done a fantastic job with the Raptors. He is the most wanted man in basketball. He's all other 29 teams would love to have Masai Ujiri. And we've seen time and time again that these proteges, these guys that are underneath these smart geniuses, pick up so much that it ends up just being, and they could always reform it as well into a way to help out their team as well. I think Bobby Webster is young, he's motivated, and he seems like a guy that absolutely has soaked up everything that Masai Ujiri has had. And I think that Bobby Webster deserves a shot to run with this. And maybe he doesn't have the pull with free agents, and maybe he's not just ready yet, but at some point you have to piss or get off the pot. And I think that since he's coming from such a great organization, he deserves this shot now.
Ricky, as far as Bobby Webster's concerned, and the way this with Ujiri oversight, do you think that like the fact that they were able to find players undrafted late in the draft, the people they did pick, were those high potential kind of caliber players, like the styling of that, do you think that matches with what the Bulls have in place, or do you think that what would him coming to the Bulls do for you?
I mean, for me, it kind of almost like the way Sean talks about it is the same way I'm kind of leaning towards either Webster or Simon from Miami. Because like Simon in Miami, I know he's assistant GM, so it's not an actual like full GM like the head GM. But like learning from Pat Riley, like that intrigues me. Like Pat Riley, one of the greatest team builders. And the thing that I feel like this Bulls team needs is we don't need a drafter. We don't need a guy that's going to like, okay, I take that back. We either need a guy who's going to draft the unhidden gems that stick with us, or the Bulls going to go the other way. And they're going to say, you know what? We've got a good drafting hold because Gar Forman's going to stay on as a scout or in the scouting department. I don't think Gar Forman's a bad scout. He's not bad at finding talent. He was just bad in the GM role that he was in, or the front office role he was in. If I feel like he can come in and help us with free agency negotiations, we are like, if I'm grading us 2K style, the Bulls are F when it comes to free agent negotiations.
Yeah.
Because we're not able to bring in the top guys. The biggest free agent that we have brought in my lifetime, like that I can remember, like in this kind of front office era, was Carlos Boozer. And
we got washed up Dwayne Wade. We got washed up Paul Gasol.
But I'm talking about like guys that were like, like the only reason we got D Wade was like trying to get more money out of Miami and said, fuck them, I'm going to go play in Chicago.
Yeah.
But like that Carlos Boozer, we were in the running. We thought we were going to get LeBron, and then we didn't get LeBron. Carmelo Anthony, having him in, not getting Carmelo Anthony. And some may look at that and go, well, that was a blessing in disguise. But the point is, we're not able to get those free agents. So the Bulls are going to have to decide, and Ryan Stores are going to have to decide, do we want a guy to find the hidden gems, the Pascal Siakams, or do we want a guy that, hey, we can trust our scouting department to help with that? We need a guy who's going to attack free agency and get us free agents, because that's what we truly need. Guys that are stars that are going to come to this team, because we're in the big three era. It's like,
I think the biggest thing though that benefits Bobby Webster is he's already closed a deal like that. He helped close the deal to get Kawhi Leonard, and yes, it was a trade, but you still had to talk him into coming and making sure that and motivated. And I think that he's a guy that has closed a big deal before, and now you're not going to give him Toronto. You're going to give him Chicago, the third largest media market. You're going to give him all these huge franchise history, aspects of the 6 championships. Michael Jordan playing in the United Center. Like, I don't know if, getting a big free agent is like, I don't think that needs to be on someone's resume. Bobby Webster's the youngest GM in NBA history. There's a great write-up in The Athletic by Dan Robinson, just explaining the type of player, the type of person and character he has. And I think he screams stud. And I think that your thoughts on free agency are fine, but in the end, it's not about getting one guy. It's about getting multiple guys. And right now, the Bulls would need to go out in free agency and get all 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
I think you need to slow your roll on free agency a little bit here, just because you need to build a solid base before you even get to getting those big free agents. I mean, you look at Boston when they got KG and Ray Allen, they already had a solid foundation there with the history of that franchise, and then also just being in the right place of already having one of those pieces in Paul Pierce. You look at what the Clippers just did. They had Jerry West. I mean, that right there enough is enough to have that, but he's also been there for a very long time. Pat Riley's been in the Heat forever. I think that's the biggest thing that you look at, and obviously he ended up getting the biggest big three there. You need to have a decent foundation, and I think Bobby Webster gives you the biggest piece of building that foundation. I think that you're starting young, you're starting smart, you're starting fast, and you're also starting with a little bit of a step forward, because Bobby Webster going to the Bulls is a big thing. This is the first person they've hired in 15 years. That is going to change the thought process of free agents, because this is a new regime that isn't tied to Michael Jordan. This guy didn't play with Michael Jordan, right? He's not
No
connected
ties,
to.
yeah.
He's not going to show you off his Jordan rings, right? No, Bobby Webster's going to show you his Toronto Raptors ring. I went to the place that never won a championship in Toronto and won one. What makes you think I can't do that in Chicago? I think Bobby Webster is clear and by far the guy that I want. But even then, if we're talking about the Heat and just you bring up Simon, I think Shane Battier also deserves a look. He's currently in their front office as well, along with Alonzo Mourning, but he's in the basketball development analytics department, and this is a guy that I think brings you such a unique viewpoint, because it's kind of like Ed Farmer. Ed Farmer just passed away. He's the radio announcer. He was the radio announcer for the Chicago White Sox, and there's, I think, two guys that currently do, or Ed was one, and they're the only other guy that ever play in the majors or be a part of the majors and be a professional ball player, and then also do play-by-play, was Bob Uecker. So Ed Farmer's in a very unique class, and I think Shane Battier is also in that unique class of, he's a guy that is, even early in his career, he was always looking at analytics and how it could help his game, but also he can relate to players. And he's played with LeBron James. He's played with Dwayne Wade. He's played with Chris Bosh. He played on that big three team. I think you get such a unique advantage of bringing in a guy like Shane Battier, who's played in the league, but also is bringing new mindsets and new angles to the game. And he can apply and take what he did do with analytics when he was playing and apply that to a larger 15-man roster. I really do think that they might be looking at the wrong guy in Miami. I think Shane Battier is more likely a better candidate if we're looking at to poach somebody from Miami. But I don't think that it's wrong. I mean, if I'm looking at teams that I want to hire from, it's the Raptors, it's the Heat, it's the Nuggets, it's the Clippers.
Yeah,
those are the teams I'm poaching from.
Those are all excellent points. The one thing that goes into my mind when I'm looking for like qualities for this GM to have would be someone who knows how to work with contracts, because we've got a lot of decisions to make, and we're still, we're on the final. Next year would be the final year of Cristiano Felicio's deal. Thank God we finally out-survived that, because that felt horrible from day one. Literally, he signed it. We're like, the fuck are we wasting our money on that for? But we do have a bunch of talented pieces, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Lowry Markkinen, we've talked about him. Obviously, Hutchinson will be in a couple of years. Otto Porter next year, he's got the player op, and then he's going to be free to do whatever he wants. He can take the $28 million next year. It's fine. It's cool.
Yeah.
But like Zach LaVine, Denzel, Chris Dunn, like all of our young talent, those contracts are going to be coming due. And then the free agents we've picked up between Satoransky, Thad Young, we have to look at those players and decide, like, how do we want to move forward? Are these guys who we're going to get rid of? Are these guys who we're going to do something with? And Lowry's like, are we going to re-sign him? If we do, how much is it going to cost us? What's too much to be worth,
And that's why I think that if you're looking for that, I think they have one of those guys in that mindset, at least in Justin Zanuck. He's a guy that if we're talking about at least contracts and a guy with that sort of background. Justin Zanuck was an agent for 15 years before he even got into the NBA, and then he got into with the Jazz, and then he went to the Bucks, and then he rose back up with the Jazz. And I think he's a very interesting name, because obviously he's been in these contract negotiations, and maybe he's not the best contract guy to handle your payroll, but I do think that he's probably learned that somehow in his 20 years in basketball. Gets the value
of what a player can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've seen pretty decent cap attacks from what he's seen. I mean, he got Mike Conley, he got Bojan Bogdanovic on the Jazz this year. And maybe that wasn't the right decision. They probably could have kept Ricky Rubio for cheaper, but they dealt with large contracts and built a contender. And I think that's the biggest thing that I really like to see from Zanuck is he's been on the other end of this, and we obviously see agents being a part of being rolled into stuff, at least into the front offices of some of these NBA things. But also he brings a true mindset of how to build two teams, the Bucks and the Jazz. So I think Zanuck's also an interesting name there, and I think if you're looking for that guy, Zanuck might fill your need there.
Yeah, no, that's a good take because it's one of those things is like knowing the value of a player, when to move on from a player, and when like this is a guy who needs to get paid by us. We need to keep him on lock, like regardless of cost. And the Bulls' future is so cloudy with, who are our core pieces outside of Kobe White and Wendell Carter Jr. I think a lot of us has come to that realization, like Zach's fantastic, but he's not able to win us games on his own. Is he going to be, he's only
unless they're against
19,
the Hornets.
Unless they're against Hornets. Well, that one game. He single-handedly can do whatever the fuck he wants against them. It's great. But yeah, like he 19 mil next year, 19 mil the year after that, and then he's up. So it just there's a lot of pieces who we need to make critical decisions on in the relatively short future. So I wonder what direction this team will go in. Are we going to just pay out and be like, hey, we're going to ride this core out and see what happens with Lowry, Otto, Zach, Kobe, and Wendell, and that's our group, and we'll just try to find nice pieces around them? I don't know. It's interesting to think what direction they could go with a roster that's as up in the air as the Bulls.
Hey, just want to throw out Bobby Webster was a part of the deal that really absolutely shook up the Toronto Raptors core and made them an NBA champion. I mean, if we're looking for a guy to make tough decisions, this guy shipped off DeMar DeRozan from Toronto. That's a part of one of the toughest decisions.
But I mean, like
a
team like the Clippers, though, with Michael Winger, like you got to look at that team. I know I'm not going to give 100% credit to any person in that front office, but that's a team that flipped their roster over from a big three of DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, and CP3, and in a matter of years turned it into something special at the top of the West. And I wonder, like, the ability to see the steps to take and to take advantage of opportunities put out there because of other teams' mishandling of situations or egos or whatever it turns into. Like, that one's intriguing to me. So, Ricky, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what Sean brings up about trading when I brought up free agency is totally true. Like, in this age, Buddy's just bargaining. My mom's probably got food for him or food for her that he thinks for him. But trading can be the new free agency. And like I kind of look at like what Buchanan did with Chad Buchanan being another name we're looking at for the Pacers. What he did to bring Victor Oladipo to that Pacers team. That wasn't free agency. That was a trade. So I kind of look at it to where, and the one thing I can't help but think is, are we just pushing the Nugget GM? I'm not even going to try to butcher his name. The Nugget GM, are we just pushing him to the side and like thinking that it's going to be either Simon, Webster, or maybe if we had to put in a third, would it be Buchanan above him? Like, I mean, yeah, he built that Nugget team to what they are, but like, does it hurt him that the Nugget team, we question, can they get over? With me, I question, can that Nugget team get over the hump?
I think that's different, though, because this team is still young. I mean, you're talking about a hump, but they also don't have a star. And I think that's different because they weren't dealing with top picks, right? They were dealing with the rattling off of Carmelo Anthony, and then I mean, they had a unique journey to get where they were.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not writing off really anybody of the names that Woj listed off because I all think that they're smart names. I think that Winger's a smart name, being around the Clippers. I think that Karnisovas is an interesting name because Tim Connelly is a very sought after, president of basketball operations. The Wizards wanted to give him $10 million, just like they wanted to do with Masai Ujiri. So apparently Conley's in the same vein of Masai Ujiri, although he hasn't won a title where Masai has. So if you're thinking about Bobby Webster, then why not Karnisovas, who's literally under Connelly? I'm not writing off any of these guys. I haven't read about a guy that I really would be uninterested in them hiring. Winger's an interesting one too because he's been in basketball since 2005. He worked for the Cavs with LeBron James. He worked with the Thunder as well, and now he's working with Kawhi with the Clippers. So I mean, he's bounced around a couple teams, and I think that really I don't think they can go wrong. I just think that
all these guys are smarter than the people we have in our front office.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing. Look,
no, exactly.
We could throw a dart at the wall at this list of names, and I think we're going in the right direction regardless.
I think Buchanan's the one that worries me the most, I guess, just because it seems like he's most in the vein of what is currently in place. He seems very similar to Gar Forman. He's a very good scouter. He's worked under I can't think of the dude in Indiana right now, but he's been under him forever. I feel that he's very similar to what Gar Forman's past has been, and I don't know if that's why they like him. And that's the biggest red flag that I've seen out of any of these guys. But even if they hire Chad Buchanan, I still think that he likely is smarter than these guys. So I think the biggest thing is it's just that this is a search to provide hope for basketball in the future of Chicago. I have a favorite in Webster, but again, if they go with any other guy, I don't think I could really be upset.
Ricky, do you have your favorite to close out this conversation?
So my favorite, I don't have one that like I'm in love with like Sean, but the Simon one does intrigue me just because of maybe it's just me doing the thing I always do of like, oh, you're learning under this guy? Oh, you're going to be just like him, which no, he's not going to be just like Pat Riley.
What I wouldn't give to be in a room with Pat Riley for like that long. Just think about all the basketball knowledge you could absorb.
What he could have learned from Pat Riley, and like I feel like they put I'm gonna say Webster did too, and so did Carnivorous of just putting a competent head coach in place, like Malone competent, Nick Nurse competent, Spoelstra competent, and I think the Bulls need that also. They need someone who is going to put a competent, and I'm overusing that word because Jim Boylan is the exact opposite. We need a competent head coach. Yeah. We do. And we need someone who's going to do the due diligence to make sure we have our guy to help take the team that this GM is going to draft and trade for and put a good product and make them work on the court.
I do wonder, and as well, like we bring up Winger, I wonder how much pull the Bulls have, because I think an interesting name would be Lawrence Frank. Some people remember him as the former coach of the Nets. But he's only been in the role of basketball president of operations for 2 years now. And you look at what they've done in 2017. So really those 3 years, what they've done in those 3 years have been stupidly impressive with the lack of talent. And maybe, hey, that's because of Doc Rivers being your coach and you're also finding good players. But I do wonder, like, if they could somehow swing Lawrence Frank away from the Clippers, because you have the Bulls, you have Chicago, right? And you won't be under Jerry West. I do question if they do have that type of pull to get Lawrence Frank, and if they do, I would love to see if they search that. But Lawrence Frank might be happy in 65 weather every single day throughout his year, and now being moved to a new stadium, so he might be fine where he is. But I do wonder if they have that type of pull.
Do you think that plays a deal into it? Do you think that plays it all into it? Because like you always hear like the Colin Cowherds will say like, well, the thing about New York and Chicago is that it gets cold. It's like, it's not cold here in LA. Does that play at all? Or is it like, hey, I am fucking going to one of the third biggest markets.
Hey, Rick.
And this is a great opportunity.
Ricky. Who has Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis?
I mean, LeBron, though, if he doesn't win that title in Cleveland, does he leave?
No, but it's LA, and what does New York and Chicago have? They have 20 years of not being able to sign anybody.
I mean, Cleveland had LeBron, and Cleveland's worse than us.
I think at this point it has to be a factor, and you just have to be a better GM to negotiate. All right, hey, you're still playing NBA basketball, and you might not be able to,
Oh no, I mean like for the GMs.
41 games, you might be cold, but for the rest of the year, you'll be happy.
Oh no, I mean like for the GM. So like for Webster, Webster's a bad pick because he's in Toronto.
Yeah, but
cold.
For GMs, it's easier to sell LA because hey, you don't have to deal with weather.
I guess I was just asking, like for the GMs, are they going to be like, oh, do I want to live somewhere where it gets that fucking cold?
No, I mean that's the problem.
Isn't
You
that
have to be in the city for at least half the year,
Mhm.
and as a
yeah?
there more than that, and it's not nice, for
Yeah, I
for
mean,
half
isn't
the
that
year
a
that you're
thought
here
process
for.
for everybody? Like, hey,
Mhm.
maybe if I'm moving to Chicago, maybe I don't want to deal with the winters
Yeah.
and shoveling snow. I
Yeah.
mean, as minute as it might be to be like, oh, you're playing for you're a part of the Bulls. It does have to play into factor, especially when
Yeah.
you're leaving the Clippers, who are an up and coming rising team.
Up and coming rising team who's got an MVP
No,
candidate.
but like this is a team with not a ton of hits. This is the first time they've ever been good.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and that he could cement his legacy if he hits on this year or
Yeah.
next year. So I totally get that. I think he might be a little bit out of our grasp, but I think that's why Michael Winger's there instead. But we'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see. Either way, again, people. The good news is any one of these people seems competent, as Ricky would say, and they're all upgrades. They're all impressive upgrades over what we've got in place. But they will not have an easy job cut out for them because this Bulls team, this Bulls franchise, this Bulls organization needs a hefty dose of house cleaning.